summer's searing horror. The relentless summer sun bore down on the English countryside, leaving the land parched and the air thick with heat. Emma and Alex, longtime friends seeking respite from their sweltering urban lives, decided to escape to the cool shade of the woods for a weekend camping trip. Their journey led them deep into the heart of the secluded forest. Surrounded by the symphony of rustling leaves and the gentle murmur of a hidden river, they felt a sense of peace they had longed for. They set up their campsite near the tranquil waters, believing they had found their own secluded paradise. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees, Emma and Alex reveled in the simple joys of the wilderness. They splashed in the river's refreshing embrace, their laughter echoing through the woods. By the campfire's warm glow, they roasted marshmallows and shared stories, feeling a sense of freedom they hadn't experienced in a long time. However, as the night deepened, a disquieting stillness settled over the forest. The usual nocturnal sounds of creatures and insects fell silent, replaced by an eerie hush. Alex noticed the change first, his keen senses picking up on the unusual atmosphere. "Emma," he said, his voice low. "Do you hear that?" She paused, her gaze shifting from the dancing flames to the darkness beyond. The wind carried whispers that sounded like voices, just on the edge of comprehension. Her skin prickled with unease. "What is that?" Emma whispered back, unable to tear her eyes from the shifting shadows beyond their campsite. The forest seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for something to happen. The friends exchanged uneasy glances, but dismissed their fears as mere products of their overactive imaginations. Perhaps it was the isolation and the unfamiliarity of the forest at night playing tricks on them. Their unease grew as they heard strange rustlings in the underbrush, and something scratched at the fabric of their tent. Alex grabbed a flashlight, his hand trembling slightly, and aimed it at the tent's entrance. The sight that met their eyes sent a shiver down their spines. Deep, claw-like marks marred the fabric, as if something had been trying to get inside. "What could have done this?" Emma asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Alex replied, his eyes scanning the dark forest. "Maybe it's just a bear or some other animal." But deep inside, they both knew it wasn't any ordinary creature. Emma noticed something half buried in the soil near the tent. She reached down and pulled out an ancient-looking journal, its pages yellowed with age. The journal's cover bore a strange emblem, and as she opened it, she found pages filled with cryptic warnings and disjointed scribblings. "Listen to this," Emma said, her voice quivering as she read aloud. "Beware the woods in summer's grip, for a malevolent force lies in wait, hungry for the souls of the lost. The sun may shine, but shadows conceal the true terror that lurks." Alex frowned, his unease deepening. "This is crazy. It's just some old journal someone left behind. There's no malevolent force in these woods." But the feeling of dread persisted as they returned to their campfire, unable to shake the growing fear that they were not alone. The oppressive heat of the night bore down on them, and their water supply dwindled faster than they had expected. The shadows around them seemed to thicken, and strange, guttural whispers filled the air. As the night wore on, they heard eerie, disembodied laughter echoing through the trees. Shapes moved at the edge of their vision, darting between the trees, just out of reach of their flashlights. Panic began to set in, and their laughter turned to nervous, uneasy giggles. "It's just our imaginations," Emma said, trying to convince herself more than Alex. But deep down, they both knew something was horribly wrong. The forest had become their prison, and they were trapped within its sweltering embrace. With each passing moment, their sense of reality unraveled further. The journal's cryptic warnings seemed to manifest before their eyes. Shadows danced and swirled, taking on sinister forms. Emma saw the twisted face of her long-deceased grandmother, while Alex was tormented by visions of a military battlefield he had tried to forget. Their sanity began to crumble under the relentless assault of the malevolent force. They had to escape. They had to find a way out of the forest. But as they tried to retrace their steps, the woods seemed to shift around them, like a living, breathing entity. The path that had led them into the forest was now a winding labyrinth that defied all logic. panic set in as they realized they were hopelessly lost, caught in a nightmare from which there was no escape. Desperation drove them to search for answers in the journal. Amongst the pages of madness, they discovered a passage that hinted at a way to confront the malevolent force. It spoke of a ritual involving fire, water, and the breaking of a cursed artifact. With no other option, they decided to follow the journal's instructions. The oppressive heat of the forest became suffocating, and their water bottles ran dry. Sweat-soaked and trembling, they managed to gather the necessary materials for the ritual. As they lit the fire and watched it dance and crackle, they couldn't help but feel a sense of dread, as if the forest itself was watching them. As the ritual neared its climax, the malevolent force struck back with a vengeance. Shadows coalesced into a grotesque supernatural entity that tore through their makeshift campsite. Emma and Alex screamed as they were assailed by visions of their deepest fears and darkest memories. They fought to hold onto their sanity, knowing that losing it would mean losing their lives. In a finale, desperate struggle, they managed to break the cursed artifact, unleashing a blinding surge of energy. The entity let out an otherworldly scream and dissipated into the night, leaving behind a sense of eerie emptiness. Exhausted and shaken, Emma and Alex knew they had survived the ordeal, but they were forever scarred by the horrors they had witnessed. As the first rays of dawn broke through the trees, they emerged from the forest, their clothes torn and their faces haggard. They left the journal behind, hoping that someone else would find it and heed its warnings. They knew they had to share their story, to warn others about the malevolent force that lay hidden in the woods, waiting for the heat of summer to unleash its terror. As they drove away from the forest, a sudden chill ran down their spines. The temperature had dropped drastically, and a haunting, echoing laughter seemed to linger in the air. They glanced at each other, their eyes filled with a mixture of relief and dread. Some horrors, they realized, never truly leave you, even in the searing heat of summer. The summer scream. Summer had descended upon the sleepy village of Eastwood, casting a golden glow over the idyllic English countryside. Lucy and Tom, lifelong friends, decided to seize the opportunity for a summer adventure they'd cherish forever. They embarked on a hiking trip into the lush woods, eager to explore the beauty of nature. The sun warmed their backs as they strolled through fields adorned with wildflowers. Birds sang melodious songs overhead, and the gentle breeze rustled the leaves of ancient trees. Nature was in full bloom, and Lucy and Tom reveled in its glory. "Tom, can you believe how beautiful this place is?" Lucy exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with wonder. Tom grinned, his rucksack slung over his shoulder. "It's like stepping into a fairy tale. This is exactly what we needed." As they ventured deeper into the woods, the dense canopy provided welcome relief from the sun's intensity. The towering trees formed a natural cathedral, their branches forming a mosaic of green. They walked hand in hand, their laughter echoing through the woods as they shared stories and enjoyed the freedom of the wilderness. But as the day wore on, Lucy and Tom found themselves venturing further from the familiar trails and deeper into the heart of the forest. The dense foliage blocked the sunlight, casting shadows that danced around them. The sense of adventure mixed with a hint of unease as they realized they were in uncharted territory. "Lucy, are you sure we're going the right way?" Tom asked, peering at the unfamiliar surroundings. Lucy consulted her map, her brow furrowing. "I think so, but I can't be entirely sure. We might have taken a wrong turn somewhere." As they continued, the woods seemed to grow quieter. The usual sounds of birds and insects faded, replaced by an eerie hush. Tom couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, but he dismissed it as paranoia. Nightfall crept upon them sooner than they had expected. The forest transformed as the sun dipped below the horizon. What was once a place of enchantment now seemed filled with shadows and secrets. "We should set up camp," Lucy suggested, her voice slightly shaky. "It's getting dark, and I don't want to be wandering around here in the pitch black." Tom agreed, and they quickly found a suitable spot near a serene, moonlit lake. They pitched their tent, gathered firewood, and soon had a crackling campfire. The flames cast dancing shadows on the trees, creating an illusion of movement in the surrounding darkness. Their laughter and conversation flowed freely as they sat around the campfire, sharing stories and roasting marshmallows. But the unease that had begun to creep in during their hike never truly dissipated, as they settled into their sleeping bags for the night. The woods outside seemed to come alive with strange sounds. Whispers carried on the wind, rustlings in the underbrush, and the occasional snapping of twigs. Tom's instincts were on high alert, but he didn't want to alarm Lucy. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his eyes scanning the darkness beyond the firelight's reach. Lucy nodded, her eyes wide. "It's probably just animals. Don't worry, Tom." But it wasn't just the sounds that bothered Tom. It was the cabin they had spotted earlier, just beyond the firelight's reach. It seemed out of place in the otherwise pristine wilderness, its wooden walls looking weathered and abandoned. "Lucy, did you notice that cabin?" Tom asked, his voice low. She glanced in the direction he indicated, her brow furrowing. "I didn't see it during the day. It does look strange, doesn't it?" As the night deepened, the cabin's presence continued to haunt their thoughts. It stood there like a sentinel in the dark, its windows like empty eyes staring into the wilderness. Lucy and Tom climbed into their sleeping bags, their unease growing. It wasn't just the cabin, it was the whispers that seemed to linger on the wind, the faint laughter that echoed through the woods. "Maybe we should check out the cabin tomorrow," Lucy suggested, trying to mask her fear with determination. Tom nodded, though he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The night grew colder, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. In the distance they heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, as if someone or something was circling their campsite. A sense of dread settled over them. "Did you hear that, Tom?" Lucy asked, her voice trembling. He nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. "Stay here. I'm going to take a look." Tom grabbed a flashlight and cautiously approached the perimeter of the campsite. The footsteps continued, soft but unmistakable, circling him like a predator stalking its prey. Then, out of the darkness, came a sound that sent shivers down his spine, a blood-curdling scream filled with agony and terror. It pierced the night, echoing through the trees and chilling him to the bone. Lucy's scream joined the cacophony, and Tom sprinted back to the campfire, his heart racing. They huddled together, their eyes wide with fear, trying to make sense of the nightmare unfolding around them. "We need to leave," Tom said urgently. "We need to get out of here." But as they packed their belongings and prepared to leave, they noticed something strange. The cabin, once standing still in the distance, was now bathed in an otherworldly, unnatural glow. It seemed to beckon to them, its windows glowing with an eerie light. Lucy and Tom exchanged uneasy glances. What had been an uneasy feeling had now grown into something much more sinister. "Lucy, we have to check it out," Tom said, his voice trembling. "We need to find out what's going on." They approached the cabin cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like beacons. The wooden walls creaked with each step, and the windows seemed to pulse with a strange energy. It was as if the cabin itself was alive. As they entered the cabin, the air grew colder, and a musty, ancient smell filled their nostrils. The interior was filled with old, decaying furniture and unsettling paintings of grotesque, contorted faces. "This place gives me the creeps," Lucy whispered, her voice barely audible. Tom nodded, his senses on high alert. As they ventured deeper into the cabin, they stumbled upon a hidden room, its walls adorned with sinister symbols. In the center of the room lay an old diary, its pages yellowed with age. Lucy picked up the diary, her hands trembling. She flipped through its pages, her eyes widening as she read aloud. "The cabin is cursed, and its walls hold a malevolent spirit. Every summer solstice, it awakens and seeks revenge on any intruders. We must find a way to bind the spirit, or it will continue to torment us." Tom and Lucy exchanged horrified glances, realizing the truth of the diary's words. They had unwittingly entered the cabin on the very night when the spirit's power was at its peak. Fear gnawed at their hearts as they heard strange sounds emanating from the cabin's walls. The wooden structure seemed to groan and shift, as if it were alive. Panic set in as they realized they were trapped within the malevolent spirit's lair. They clung to the diary, desperately searching for a solution. Amongst the pages of madness, they found an incantation, a way to confront the spirit and bend it once more. With trembling hands and hearts filled with dread, They began to recite the incantation. The air grew colder, and shadows seemed to come alive, swirling around them. The malevolent spirit materialized before them, a grotesque, shadowy figure with hollow eyes. "Tom, keep reading," Lucy cried, her voice quivering. As they continued the incantation, the spirit let out an anguished wail. It fought against their efforts, its form contorting and shifting, but they held firm. With one final, desperate plea, they uttered the last words of the incantation. The cabin trembled, and the malevolent spirit let out a final, anguished scream before dissipating into the night. The walls stopped pulsating, and the eerie light in the windows flickered and died. Exhausted and shaken, Tom and Lucy knew they had faced a malevolent force born from the darkness that lurked beneath the beauty of the summer woods. They emerged from the cabin, their clothes torn and their faces haggard, but they were alive. The first rays of dawn broke through the trees, and they made their way back to their campsite. The forest, once a place of enchantment, now seemed eerily still. They left the cabin behind, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that some secrets were best left undisturbed, even in the warmth of a summer's day. As they drove away from the forest, they exchanged a knowing glance, a silent reminder of the horrors they had faced and conquered. The memory of the summer scream would forever echo in their minds, a chilling testament to the mysteries that the natural world could conceal. Years later, Lucy and Tom remained close friends, forever bound by the shared experience of that fateful summer night. The memory of the cabin and the malevolent spirit haunted their dreams, but it also served as a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. And so, they ventured forth into the world, forever changed by the summer scream, but determined to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that they had overcome the darkness that had threatened to consume them.